Hey guys, today we're going to be talking about how to add and subtract rational numbers. So I'm just going to talk about the vocab, then we're going to skip through the notes a little bit. And really what we're going to be talking about today is how to add and subtract fractions and decimals. Because rational numbers, as we talked about this week, are any number that can be written as a fraction or a decimal or a whole number. So we're going to be doing that today and talking about how do I exactly add these things together. So to start off, what you'll need to do is you'll need to, let's just find a problem real quick. First, let's talk about two things. Let's talk about positives and negatives. So a positive number is obviously a number above zero, and a negative number is below zero. So when you're adding them, a couple things you need to know. When you add two positives, so if I'm taking two positive numbers, you just add them together like you normally would. Okay? If I'm taking two negative numbers, you're going to add those together like you normally would if they were both positive, and then you're going to keep the sign. So they keep the negative sign. And then if there were one positive and one negative, you're going to subtract them. And then you take the sign of the bigger one, meaning which one has the greatest value. So we're going to keep the sign of the biggest. Okay, so obviously I'm not going to cover problems like if I told you to add 11 plus 7, I know you guys know that equals 18. Or if I told you to take negative 10 plus negative 3, you just add those two numbers together. So that'd be 13, and you keep the negative sign. So it'd be negative 13. I know you guys realize how to add whole numbers together if you're watching this. So we're going to talk about fractions and decimals. I'm going to start with adding fractions. So when you're adding fractions, let's say we have 1/8 plus 3/4. When you're adding fractions, they need a common denominator. So what that means is these bottom numbers right here, the 8 and the 4, they have to be the same. If they're not the same, we have to make them the same. And you do that with multiplication. So we have to find a number that they both go into. So 8 and 4, a number they both go into is 8. So this one I'm not going to touch because it's already an 8. And this one we have to multiply the top and the bottom by 2. And we do that because now on the bottom we have an 8 and the top will change to a 6. Now that we have a common denominator between the two, we can add those together. 1/8 plus 6/8 gives me a total of 7/8. And then you check to see if that's simplified, which it is, and then that would be your answer. Okay, let's try another one where we do, let's go 3/7 plus 1/3. So I need to find a number that 3 and 7 both go into because these are not common denominators. And that would be 21. And if you're not sure how I got 21, or if you can't think of the number off the top of your head, what you do is you multiply this side by the opposite denominator, meaning we're going to take this side and multiply it by 3. And we're going to take this side and multiply it by the opposite denominator, which is 7. Like that. So 3 over 3 and 7 over 7. When we do that, we get 9 over 21 plus 7 over 21. Now that we have a common denominator, we can add these together and get 16 over 21. And then you check, can I simplify that? You cannot. So then that would be my answer. Okay? And that's how we're adding fractions. I'll do a couple more examples with you guys so you kind of get an idea of it. Let's go 2/8 plus, that's bad, plus, let's go -1/4. So the negative goes to the top number, and we need a common denominator here. So a common denominator between 8 and 4 would be 8. So we're going to multiply this by 2 over 2. And this side we're going to leave alone. So 2/8 plus -2/8. Now, like I wrote at the top, we have one positive and one negative, which means we're going to subtract them and keep the sign of the biggest one. So you're going to take 2 minus 2, which gives me 0 over 8, which equals 0. Okay, let's try to find an example. Let's go 1/2 plus negative, let's go negative 4/7. So I need to find a common denominator between 2 and 7. And if I'm not sure about that, I'm going to multiply this side by 7 over 7 and this side by 2 over 2. When I do that, I get 7 over 14 plus negative 8 over 14. So the denominators are going to stay the same, still over 14. You don't touch those. Now we have a positive and a negative. So what that means is we subtract them. 8 minus 7 gives me 1. And then I take the sign of the bigger one. 8 is bigger than 7, so it becomes a negative 1/14. Okay? Same thing on another one. Let's go negative 5 over 6 plus 2 over, let's go 10. So we need a number that they both go into between 6 and 10. Now, if you're not sure what it is, go with the method I showed you. If you are sure what it is, you're going to get the same answer in the end. Some of you might be saying 30. Some of you might be saying 60. I'm going to show you the 60 way because that's the way we've been going about it. So you multiply this side by 6. And you multiply this side by 10. And you get negative 50 over 60 plus 12 over 60. So it stays over 60 for right now. Excuse my dog, she's shaking off right now. And then you're going to subtract these. So 50 minus 12. We're subtracting them because they're opposite. So 50 minus 12 gives me 38. And then I take the sign of the bigger one, which is 50. So negative 38 over 60. Now this we can simplify. Okay, so a number that goes into 38 and 60 would be 2. So this would be negative 19 over 30. And I got that by dividing this by 2. And then this can't be simplified anymore, so that's my answer. Okay? Now, when you're adding fraction or decimals, I should say, it's the same thing. So if I did 3.75 plus 2.98, I'm just going to stack them, and then you line up the decimals. So 3.75, 2.98, and you just add those together. So 13, 17, 6. And that's how you add fractions. Line up the decimals. If they're opposites, let's say we had 5.9 plus negative 10.2. You're going to subtract them. So we're going to put the bigger one on top. 10.2 minus 5.9. I got to borrow from here. It gives me a 9. So this gives me a 3. 4.3, and then you take the sign of the bigger one. So 10 is bigger than 5.9, so you get negative 4.3. And that is how you add fractions and decimals. Hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully you understand it. Thank you, guys.